Hello and welcome to Solely Singleton, episode 189. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
This episode is very special, Eric. Do you know why?
Because it's a Solely Singleton episode, and they're all special? Like special snowflakes?
No, because I get to read Tezzeret flavor text.
I mean, you don't have to. There is an alternate flavor text.
No.
On the clearly better card that we're going to talk about.
No. All right, folks, I regret my decisions. I was like, let's do a fun single card discussion about one of my favorite cards, and then Eric fucking ruined it.
Oh, I ruined it in the absolute best way possible.
Gavin, why the fuck did you ruin one of the best cards by making it a fucking Fortnite card?
Not only is it a Fortnite card, it's also called The Cube. Thank you, Gavin, for making a card called The Cube for our Cube podcast. That is an awesome, awesome card for cubes.
All right, so this week we're talking about Planar Bridge. We're not talking about the Cube. We're not mentioning Fortnite for the rest of this episode. I am deleting the picture from the show notes.
That's what you think.
We are going to talk about Planar Cube.
Yes, Cube Bridge.
So, Planar Bridge came out in Aether Revolt, which is honestly new enough that I know we talked about how it tested for us previously on the show.
That was a long time. That was pre-COVID.
The before years. But it is still in my cube, and I still want to talk about it. It deserves its full episode.
And, I mean, it's also just a fun topic to talk about. So I'm on board as well, even though this is very much a you card.
It is specifically a me card. If we're being honest here on the spectrum from Eric card to Brad card, there isn't a sliver of Eric card in this.
But I respect it and think it's cool, which is more than most of the cards that are your cards. So, real quick, let's just read it off. Planar Bridge is 6 for a legendary artifact. You can pay 8, tap it to search your library for a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. And go ahead, Brad, have your fun with Tezzeret.
It is finished. Now the real work can begin. Tezzeret.
So clearly, this is an aggro card, right? This goes in the artifact aggro deck.
Yeah, the artifact aggro deck is definitely the target for this, so you want to be playing a really low curve. Red, white, probably, maybe a little bit of black in there. You want to be capping out at like a 2-3 drop, and then Planar Bridge
as the end goal. Really solidify your win with it.
That way you can fetch up more 2 to 3 drops.
Yeah.
Maybe a 1 drop if you're really looking to get them. You don't fetch a land. That's too much of a message.
That's too much of a message.
But in all seriousness, this is obviously for the slowest of the slow control decks. It doesn't have to be artifact based, but you can bet your sweet ass it is when I play it.
Oh, definitely is. And it does pretty well in that artifact heavy deck though, because you need a lot of mana, and so some of those more expensive mana producing artifacts can actually find a use.
It kind of plays really well into the problem of the slow artifact deck and solving it. So like the real question with the artifact deck is, why are you playing the slow artifact deck instead of just a slow control deck? Well, we can make a bunch of colorless mana. Okay, what point does that have? Well, I can cast and use Planar Bridge.
Yeah.
And then you also get the benefit of you're probably low on color requirements in the deck, so it's not too bad when you draw an off-color card that, while technically castable, like let's say you're in Grixis and you draw like, I don't know, Emissary of Grudges is one of your finishers, and you're like, it's castable with the red mana, or I could cheat it out using Planar Bridge when I'm just trying to cascade through anything remotely close to a win con to go, now answer this one. Now answer this one.
Yeah, and it is one of those things that this is going in the very slow control deck.
It can also go into Hyper Ramp. Like, there is an alternative. If you're playing, like, the ramp deck that is expecting to hit an 8-drop, this is still a very good card there.
Yes. One of the tough things with Planar Bridge is making sure that you do still have enough of these game-ending, finishing permanent cards. So you can actually do what you said, where it's here, answer this, here, answer this, here, answer this.
I think that is correct in that you need it, but you don't need Ugin the Spirit Dragon for every one of those. It can be a Tezzeret, like a generic, just every turn, you slap all that colorless mana, put it to use to go through your deck and find new big threat.
Right.
And it's probably best if it's something more varied, like getting Planeswalkers on occasion.
Planeswalkers are one of the most important aspects to this card, honestly, just because they are so strong. And you can do this whenever you want, and you can get the right Planeswalker at the right time and protect each other. And
yeah, you can even do responsive ones, like, as long as you've got this untapped with your mana up, your opponent knows you always have some equivalent of Chupacabra. Honestly, nowadays it's probably going to be like Necron Deathmark in my artifact deck for an equivalent.
Probably, but I mean, you've also got like the O-rings and stuff. Like, there's permanent-based answers that exist that need to be respected. Like, yeah, you're spending way more mana.
But you're tutoring too.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter how much you're spending if it means nothing to you.
Right.
Like, if you're playing this in a deck that has some kind of disgusting land, like you've got a Tolarian Academy online.
Yep.
Or you've got, if you're in the ramp version, you've got a Raphelos and you're like, I don't give a shit about mana costs.
There definitely is a point where those decks, once they hit Planar Bridge and it's on, mana no longer matters. It's just threat after threat. Just pick the right ones kind of thing.
Or balancing out. Threat, solve this, and I'm going to start popping down counter answers or answers in the meantime while the threat kills you.
Yeah.
When you're in the ramp deck, you probably will be slapping down fat creature, big planeswalker, fat creature, like something like that.
Yeah.
But when you're playing this in a control deck, it's very likely that you just play out a devastating, strong planeswalker, I don't know, Will Kenrith or something, and then you just have him online and Planar Bridge online for all sorts of power in play. Like, whatever you need to control is controlled. The opponent has lost, but they need to just wait until they actually are done.
And I think that's why I look at Planar Bridge as the slow control deck card. Like, yes, it can go into the hyper ramp, and it has proven itself there. But to me, the slow control deck is able to put that threat out there and then more or less hold back and say, I have the ability to answer whatever you're going to do, or I can continue to progress the board state with things that are not game-ending threats, but are just like preparing for whatever your answer is to my actual threat. So like, you put a Will Kenrith down. Awesome. So if they haven't answered it, you can activate it and put, just generally good things into play, like maybe a standstill. That's not mana efficient.
You just wanted to mention standstill.
It goes well where it's not another threat, but it's preparing for if they answer your current threat. If they don't answer it, well, you're probably going to win anyways because you have a Will Kenrith unanswered. Like,
yeah.
But you can set up backup plans and prepare in advance for things like that. You don't have to just be threat.
Now you've got me off on a tangent thinking about like silly things where you're like cycling your Shark Typhoon with Standstill and Will in play, and this just sounds like a stupid fun time.
No, it's great. And like with Planar Bridge, like that's the kind of deck that I'm like, yeah, okay, this is a Brad card.
Yeah.
But I can find some fun here.
I honestly think it's super thematic. One of the best things I do in a slow rolling artifact deck is a combination of Tezzeret Master of the Bridge and Planar Bridge, where usually it's you set up for Planar Bridge through whatever means, whether it be another Tez helping set it up or something like that. And then you're probably at a point where you've got like 5+ artifacts in play. You just slam down Tezzeret Master of the Bridge off of your Planar Bridge, suck the life out of them.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, solve this, dumbass. And there's no way out of that.
It works really well. The difficult part is, you have to make it to not only playing Planar Bridge, but also activating it.
It's weird because it always sounds impossible when you look at the card because you're like, I have to pay 6 mana and then I have to pay 8 more.
Yeah, like, oh my god, I have to pay 14 mana before I get to do anything.
That's the fallacy I always fucking despise when people look at cards like level up cards and stuff.
It's like, why wouldn't I just play an Eldrazi at that point? Well, hold on a second.
But the way to think of it is Planar Bridge is the 6-drop. You are playing it so that you have it around forever. You are then able to, while it is in play, pay 8 mana to Demonic Tutor in your deck and fetch out a 6-drop and pay all colorless for it. You can then do it again the next turn. You can then do it again the next turn. And you can do whatever. You can find your Ulamog Ceaseless Hunger or something. It doesn't have to be a 6-drop, but you get my point. Like,
Right.
there is a lot more value in it per mana than you first read when you have your first negative look at it, especially because you're playing it in a deck where 6 mana doesn't mean the same thing it does if you're playing fair junk mid-range, right?
Right. You're absolutely trying to end up with more mana than most decks. However you're going to go about doing it, whether it's taking advantage of artifacts or taking advantage of ramp or taking advantage of very powerful lands or whatever it is, you're trying to cheat on that aspect in some way. And once you've done that, being able to search your library for any permanent card and put it into the battlefield is very powerful. So it just honestly works out. The problem is that you do need to get to it, though.
Yes. This is where it comes into, like, I'm not going to recommend this for, like, a hyper power 360, unless you're in, like, pure combo land where mana means nothing, stuff like that.
Right, yeah, it's one of those, like, if mana means nothing, then, yeah, sure, mana means nothing.
If you're playing a very fair 360 or something, I probably can't argue this. But if you're in, like, a 540, 630... you've got a lot of more fun decks going on, a lot of fun themes in your colors.
If you're looking for cards that have story equity to it.
Yeah, that's a solid bonus of it. It really does have it. But you're looking for something like this there, where you're not going to have every game decided by turn 3 because of the new broken thing from Modern Horizons 2, 3, 6, 25, Hud Hud Hike.
What the fuck just happened?
The new set coming out that we're going to have to deal with in 2 months, Eric.
Yeah.
Our future is fantastic, Eric.
Yeah, so it is definitely one of those. Planar Bridge is cool, and it can work, definitely. But not in every cube. And the ones that are trying to be the most streamlined, the most efficient kind of thing, this is probably not the card. And I think it's pretty obvious that this is not the card that you want in that kind of cube. But I don't think enough people enjoy playing dumb story kind of cards that still work out well. I don't know. Maybe that's just one of those, we've been playing cube for so long that it doesn't need to be the most streamlined. It's okay to have these types of fun cards. They're still good.
Which gets into more of a whole episode topic of, does cube tend to follow the EDH curve that I call it, where you start off with a bunch of garbage because you're new, and then there's the arms race towards what you believe is like perfection, and then you snap at a certain point and just go, I'm just going to play the fun things. Does that happen to basically every play group with cubes?
Yes, there definitely is this like arms race of, I want to make the most efficient, the most consistent, the most whatever it is.
And then you have to explain to people in 45 words what your 1-drop only, green card only, but can't produce mana unless it's a land, and also you have to draft your basics.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
I was on several controlled substances while coming up with this list.
But there definitely is that like next step of like, yeah, you go back to just, I want to play Planar Bridge because I think it's neat and it works out pretty well.
And we're downplaying it, but I still think it's good. Like, it's not that it's bad. It's just there's better things to do in a very small cube.
Yeah.
But like, if you're playing a lot of the mid-level cards that are just solid in their archetype, you have room for this.
It is one of those interesting kind of cards that as they print more and more cards, Planar Bridge doesn't get worse. You know? Because like it's already at the mana doesn't really matter level, which means anything that you're getting with it is already just going to keep with the curve of things are getting better and better. Like whatever that curve is, Planar Bridge follows it because it's just a tutor for whatever it is.
And that gets into my whole, like, it's not good in a 360 full of fair stuff that's just very powerful, yet it is still good in a crazy combo land cube because it plays well in crazy combo land cubes.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like, if mana doesn't matter, well, then mana doesn't matter. Like, this is still a tutor for permanence.
The numbers stop mattering at a certain point.
Yeah, which is another neat reason that Planar Bridge still kind of, like, sticks around, and I expect it to still be something for a while, even if it's not for everybody and not for every cube. It will scale reasonably well, and that's not something to be said about a lot of cards. So...
yeah, Ragavan's going to be unplayable in another 2 Modern Horizon sets.
I hope not. Goblin Guide, on the other hand.
Oh, fuck off. I don't even want to think about that day. Don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
He might not even be standard playable soon.
Oof.
All right, and on that depressing note, let's end this topic. I just wanted to talk about a card I love this week. I just needed a little pick-me-up, and I got it. So next episode, we can cover something completely different.
Yeah, and I think I got some ideas for next topic.
I have an interesting one, actually. We can talk after this, but for now, let's get everybody out of here.
Sounds good.